The Beast of Bray Road has a secret that Elkhorn, Wisconsin paid to bury. And you're about to read the municipal report. They literally paid to have erased from public record. They succeeded, except it was photographed first. The Beast of Bray Road has been dismissed as folklore since 1989, dismissed as if missing persons cases, redacted police files, and a creature sighting documented by over 100 witnesses across 3 counties can be filed away as campfire mythology. It was journalist Linda Godfrey who first refused to let that happen. Writing for the Walworth County Week in 1991, Godfrey documented what local law enforcement was quietly trying to contain and named the creature that would define the legend. But something happened in Elkhorn in the mid-1990s that changed how local law enforcement classified animal encounters, and the paper trail proves they were hiding something. This is some unapproved thinking. Let me show you what they tried to bury. The first official sighting happened on November 2nd, 1989. A woman named Lori Andrizzi, driving on Bray Road, a rural county route in Elkhorn, reported seeing a creature that defied classification, 7 feet tall, bipedal, covered in dark fur. The skin underneath was described as hairless and grayish, where the fur had been torn away. This wasn't a bear sighting. This wasn't a misidentified deer. The police report used the phrase unidentifiable primate. Not their usual language for a wildlife call. That single phrase matters because once law enforcement officially documents something as unidentifiable, they've created a category that doesn't exist in their standard taxonomy. They've admitted ignorance on record. And governments don't like admitting ignorance on record. Lori Andrizzi's account would become the cornerstone of Godfrey's reporting, one real witness whose name you can verify, whose statement sits in the record, whether Elkhorn likes it or not. The sightings accelerated after that first report, February 1991, June 1992, October 1993. Each one followed the same pattern. Rural roads, dusk to full dark, witnesses who had no reason to lie. A dairy farmer named Jim, a woman named Barb, who worked at a local bank, a high school janitor. These weren't cryptid enthusiasts. These were people who wanted nothing to do with attention, yet they reported what they'd seen anyway. And they weren't alone in the region. Across Lake Michigan, researchers were documenting nearly identical encounters that would come to be called the Michigan Dogman. Same bipedal silhouette, same dark fur, same rural road sightings at dusk. Some researchers argue the Beast of Bray Road and the Michigan Dogman are the same creature covering a broader territorial range, what indigenous oral traditions had long described as the man-wolf, a being that doesn't respect state lines. The police took statements, they filed documents, and then something shifted. By 1994, internal memos began using a different term. Not beast, not creature. The reports called it the subject. The subject was spotted. The subject moved through Bray Road on the night of March 3rd. The subject disappeared near the Elkhorn Mill. This clinical language is crucial because it's how law enforcement talks about suspects in criminal cases, not animals, suspects. They had reclassified what was happening from a wildlife incident to a criminal investigation, and they were hiding that classification shift from the public. What changed between 1989 and 1994? That's the question nobody's asked you before. 3 teenagers went missing in that 5-year window, not together, separately, across different seasons. Kevin Klein in the spring of 1992, his car was found abandoned on a rural road 8 miles from Bray Road. Sarah Metz in the summer of 1993, last seen hitchhiking near Highway 12. David Chen in early 1995. His backpack was recovered in a ravine with no sign of struggle. The police investigated each case as separate runaways, they concluded. Probable voluntary disappearances. But the proximity to the subject sightings wasn't coincidental. Nope, it was classified. A redacted document was obtained by a retired Elkhorn sheriff's deputy named Tom Wickes. He kept a photocopy because he didn't trust what his department was doing. The header is stamped, quote, confidential, law enforcement sensitive. What follows is a 14-page analysis of behavioral patterns associated with primate aggression in the Elkhorn Municipal Zone. But here's what makes this document explosive. It wasn't prepared by wildlife officials. It was written by the Walworth County Sheriff's Office criminal profiler. They were analyzing the beast like it was a criminal subject because at some point they stopped believing it was an animal. The document contains redactions, 17 separate redacted sections to be specific. You can see where they cut out names, locations, and specific behavioral observations. But between the redacted passages, you catch fragments. Pattern suggests intelligence beyond typical mammalian cognition. Bipedal progression indicates deliberate path selection, not random foraging. Hair samples recovered from scene are inconsistent with any known North American species. That last phrase was highlighted, underlined, multiple times in different pens, as if different people were reviewing it in shock, unable to accept what their own evidence was showing them. One section wasn't redacted completely. It reads, "Witness accounts describe the subject as watching humans rather than attacking immediately. This suggests reconnaissance behavior or predatory selection. The spatial distribution of sightings forms a pattern consistent with territorial mapping. A creature that was learning the area, learning the roads, learning when teenagers would be vulnerable on rural routes at night. Tom Wickes kept that document for 19 years before he showed it to anyone. Why? Because he knew what admitting the truth would do. It would shatter the official narrative that Elkhorn was safe. It would admit that law enforcement had withheld critical information from parents whose children vanished. It would prove that someone, somewhere, had decided that protecting the town's reputation was more important than warning its residents. And that's when you have to ask yourself, what's worse? The monster itself, or the people who knew about it and stayed silent? The document was officially lost in 1998. Wickes was pressured to resign in 2001. He cited jurisdictional disputes in his resignation letter, but he told colleagues the real reason. He couldn't be part of an organization that had weaponized secrecy. The department's response was to file complaints about his conduct during his final year of service. A paper trail of manufactured failures designed to discredit him if he ever went public. Classic institutional defense mechanism. Make the whistleblower look unstable, and no one will believe what he has to say. Here's what people don't understand about local government. They're not evil, necessarily. They're scared. The Elkhorn City Council faced a genuine crisis. Sightings were increasing, people were arming themselves, property values were dropping because rural families didn't feel safe anymore. They had to choose between transparency and survival. Transparency meant admitting the creature existed, which meant panic, lawsuits, and an unsolvable crisis. It meant telling parents that something unidentifiable had been hunting their roads for years while they did nothing. On the other side, survival meant controlling the narrative, consolidating the sightings as misidentifications, closing cases as voluntary disappearances, pressuring witnesses to stop talking. It's not conspiracy in the traditional sense. It's institutional self-preservation. But self-preservation has a price, and that price is paid by the people who are left wondering what happened to their children. The Klein family filed a civil suit against Walworth County in 1998. The suit alleged that withheld information about, quote, documented animal activity constituted negligence. They lost. The judge ruled that the sightings were, quote, unverified anecdotal reports, not actionable evidence. But here's what the judge didn't have access to: the police profiler's analysis. That document was sealed under law enforcement privilege. The family never knew what the sheriff's office actually believed about why their son disappeared. What's worth noting is that while this courtroom battle was happening in Elkhorn, Linda Godfrey was still digging. The Walworth County Week coverage had grown into a full investigation. Godfrey was cross-referencing sightings that stretched from Delavan, Wisconsin, where the earliest documented regional encounter dates back to 1936, all the way up through the Bray Road corridor. The geographic pattern she identified traced a range, not a random scatter, a territorial range. The same conclusion the sheriff's profiler had reached in a sealed document that Godfrey didn't know existed. 26 years later, Bray Road is still quiet. No sightings have been officially reported since 2003. Either the creature moved on, died, was killed, or learned to avoid humans entirely. What's almost certainly true is that it's still there. Because once a territorial predator establishes a range, it doesn't just abandon it, it just becomes better at hiding within it. The vanishing stopped because either the creature became more cautious, or because no one was being honest enough to report them anymore. The culture of silence that Elkhorn built became so effective that even if something happened tomorrow, people wouldn't call it in. They'd tell themselves it was a coincidence, a wild animal, anything but the truth. And that's the real trap Elkhorn fell into. They thought they could manage the truth by containing it. But contained truth doesn't die. It ferments. It becomes the story people tell their kids to keep them away from Bray Road at night. It becomes the unsolved mystery that generates tourists who want to see where it happened. It becomes the proof of a cover-up that nobody can quite document, which is paradoxically more powerful than the actual evidence would have been, because people believe what they can't verify more readily than what they can. The document Tom Wickes kept is real. The redactions are real. The pattern of missing teenagers is real. And the municipal decision to let the narrative collapse into folklore rather than confront the creature head on is the most terrifying part of all, because it means that somewhere right now, someone in a position of power is making the exact same decision about the exact same situation. The only difference is that you don't know what it is. Sadly, my friends, they are getting much better at hiding it. This has been Some Unapproved Thinking. Tracy, out.